like sometimes people have a special connection with, I don't know why you find that as well, people have a special connection when you're a female politician. The conversation sometimes goes in a direction that I feel maybe this exact same conversation may not happen in the same way if it's a male, etc. People are more forward-coming, saying, I have a son who's married, who's this, who's that, and they give you family details, more of a closer connection. So I love that part of it. I've not worked harder in my life than I have. But for me, it's, certainly as a cabinet minister, given a certain responsibility, but know that you have colleagues that will support you, and I think that's important for women. Women work very good as teams and groups, etc. There's a lot of consensus talking around it. So, there are a lot of things that I think being a woman adds something very special.
Let me think. Well, maybe I'll tell a couple of the surprises, challenges, or funny stories. My first week on Parliament Hill, we have this thing called the members' entrance, where all of the members go through, and only members can go through there, so elected officials. And I kept walking through with other members that said they would show me around that first week, some of my colleagues. And then my first time going through by myself, I had an armload of books, and I walked through the members' entrance, and the police, or the security guard just said, "Hey, wait a second, young lady, where do you think you're going?" And I'm standing there with this big load of books, and I said, "I'm going into Parliament." And he looked at me and he said, I've seen you come back and forth all week, but you should know better that only members of Parliament can come out. And then the other security guard was looking at him like, you don't know who she is, do you? And so they worked it out amongst themselves through whispers, and then he said, "I'm really sorry, let me through." And another time, I was my first ever finance committee meeting. I went in and I was sort of standing around, didn't know where to go, what to do, where to sit. And I walked up and I was just about to sit down, and one of the guys on finance committee, who's now not in Parliament anymore, looked at me and said, "Yeah, do you mind getting me a coffee?" And then when he realized that I was a newly elected person, he said, "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry." And by all means, it's not intentional, but it's just unusual to be a younger woman. Not that I'm not young in Parliament. And
you're young.
I don't have your yearbook. You're young. When I've had staff that are men that are older than me that go with me places, and it's the first time I'm meeting someone, they usually go to shake his hand first, and they think he's the member of Parliament or the cabinet minister. And one time, this is really funny, I was getting an award from this large group. It was an Indian group, and I think it was Vaisakhi Day, but they didn't realize that I was a woman, and they just assumed when they saw my name it was spelled wrong, that I must be Minister Ron Ambrose. So not only were they expecting a man, but they had a plaque made up for me with my name, Ron Ambrose. They kept looking around trying to find me on stage, like, where's the minister? And I'm standing there, and then it was just so awkward. And the poor guy covers it up and says, "We'll redo it. I'm so sorry. We just thought you'd be a man." So you get things like that, which are surprising, challenging as well, but also humorous. And you take those stories and you tell young women, when you knock on doors, you have little girls come to the door and say, their mom says she's running for office, and you have little girls their faces light up and say, "Are you going to be the Prime Minister?" And when things like that happen, you realize it does make a difference to have women just at the door talking to young women, getting them interested, bringing them in as interns, and supporting one another. So there's challenges, there's surprises, and there's you have to have a really good sense of humor too.
Just one fact I can add to that: in Afghanistan, women didn't have the right to vote. In the last election, which was an open, fair election, actually now 25% of their parliamentarians are women. They have a better record than we have here in Canada.
Yeah. We've got to change that.
For sure.
We're working on it.